there's several different things that are within these readings today. I first want to just talk about the first reading in the responsorial psalm, because you have this beautiful balance that's there. In the responsorial psalm, we have the truth and reality that we understand in Catholic teaching, that there will be an end of the world. There will be a judgment. There will be a culmination, ultimately, in not merely just the spirit of the age, but also an Antichrist and certain moments of tribulation. Those are things that are real. And so it's important for us to remember that there is a progression that's happening in which things are going to get a lot darker before they get brighter. The Lord comes to judge the earth. So that's one aspect that's there, and it's important for us to remember that. But then there's this other aspect of sometimes we can get caught up, and maybe this is where the gospel, a way you can look at the gospel, is to look at, in a sense, little details, and sometimes fall into a scrupulosity of sort of searching for the code of understanding the end times. We have this over and over again, different movements. I think, what was it, 2012, I think there was one, and I think at 1999, in the year 2000, there was another one, and there's this desire of wanting to know, when is the end of the world going to come? And sometimes we can not understand biblical language very well. We look at the book of Revelation and we sort of create like a Left Behind series or something like that, where we look at the grotesque figures of the horsemen locusts and we say, well, they're the U.S. Apache helicopters, and there's these different sort of ways in which we can kind of read into things and not understand apocalyptic biblical imagery, which brings us back to the Old Testament, and it's this whole, that's a whole nother homily there, but it is this way of speaking to ultimately give us courage, to be able to say in the midst of darkness, the Lord ultimately has the final say, and He is the Lord of light, and He will win against any of the forces of darkness. So hold on to Him. That's really what the book of Revelation is the bride of the Lamb waits in the midst of this battle for the bridegroom to come to rescue, ultimately make all things new. So in this letter of St. Paul to the Thessalonians, we have the church of Thessalonica afraid because someone is writing a letter in the name of Paul that's not from Paul, saying, guess what, church of Thessalonica, the day of the Lord has come right now. And they start being afraid. They either become afraid or they become complacent. This is where the letters in Thessalonians, there's a lot dealing with continue to work, continue to live as a community. Whoever does not work should not eat. You remember that whole thing about don't be busybodies, but really be a part of the communal life. And what started to happen is they started to focus on the end times in such a way that they forgot about living in the present. And they were focused on, well, it's come already, so I don't really need to do anything. Or they were afraid, and they started searching for it and in a sense living there versus being able to live right in the present moment. And this is ultimately when Christ himself in the Gospels will always point about the sense of, yes, there are these things that are coming, but as far as when the day of the Son of Man comes, he comes like a thief in the night. And so he always says, be prepared. He says, not even the Son of Man knows, but only my Heavenly Father knows. And so even Scott Hahn would talk about this image of if God sort of Jesus willingly allowed himself not to have that knowledge in his humanity, then we shouldn't necessarily be seeking for it in an unnatural way as well. Again, there's that balance. We need to be aware, and Jesus even talks about the signs of the times, but we need to be able to have this humility that is not a grasping in a way of saying, I figured out the code of what's going to happen. I know when the end of the world is going to come. Because when we do that, then what happens is we cease to be able to live for the present with the Lord. If we have the sense of we do not know when that is coming, but it will come, and it does seem that there are certain culmination things that are happening more and more, then it should move us to prepare for the day of the Lord to come at any moment. Maybe after this Mass. Maybe in the middle of this Mass. Maybe 100 years from now. Or maybe the day of the Lord in a personal way for each of you will come in the moment when you die. So this is the key to Catholic teaching, is this balance between not just putting it off saying, well, you know, that's just kind of a metaphorical thing that's just going to happen. No, there is going to be a real end of the world, a real particular judgment, and a general judgment of all of mankind. There will be this culmination of an Antichrist. But we have to be careful not to sort of grasp in an unnatural way, in a way that takes us away from living for God now, versus trying to seek and trying to have, in a sense, power. It's the vice of curiosity, kuriositas, which is, I need to have that power to know exactly how it's going to work, so then I can be ready. But in doing that, we actually lose our ability for readiness, because we're not ready right now. Because if we're thinking it's going to be on this day, and maybe the Lord fakes us out and says, well, I'm going to come 2 days earlier, and then we're getting ready there, and you know, sometimes there could even be a danger of saying, well, I can live my life, maybe I'll get to confession on this day, and then the Lord actually comes on this day instead, and you're like, oh, I missed it. So again, be prepared. Live your life as if God were coming in the next minute. Would you be ready to meet him? If you live your life as though he's coming right around the corner, then we prepare our hearts so that when he does come, it's not going to be a terrifying thing, but it is going to be the waiting of someone that our heart has been longing for, knocking at the door of our heart. And we'll say, it's good to have you come. I've been waiting for you. As he says, I've been waiting